everybody. In this video I'm going to teach you about a new type of notation, or for some of you it might not be so new, and it's called function notation. So in an equation such as the one you see before you, we have y equals 2x plus 3. You should know by now that if you were to graph points that make this equation true, you'd get a line. So I'm going to do a little bit of a change right here. I'm going to say, instead of calling this y equals 2x plus 3, I'm going to replace that y with an f of x. Okay, so really what this now says is that the function, okay, is going to be called f of x. That's the name of the function. And right here where it says x, that's saying whatever we'd like to plug in, we're going to put in that spot. So in this case, we plugged in x. So here's how we're going to use this new notation. If I want to know what f of 1 is, okay, I'm going to ask you, what is f of 1? And that means that you should replace x with 1. So I'm doing 2 times 1 plus 3 to get 5. And this is very similar to something you might be used to doing, which is making a table. So normally you'd had your x column and your y column, right? But now I'm going to put f of x here instead, because that really stands for y. So if someone had said plug in values for x, you might say, okay, x could be 2. You'd come over here to your function, right? Do you like my new toy? It's a little laser pointer toy. And you'd plug in 2, and you'd get 7. Right? So you'd make a nice table of values here. But we're just doing the same thing, except it's being even more specific. It's saying, what is f of a particular number? Say 5. So that says to plug 5 in. This is the number to plug in for x. So I would do 2 times 5 plus 3, which is 13. So this is really what function notation is all about. I'm going to move to the next. So notice I have the same function, f of x equals 2x plus 3, and I've asked you a different type of question. I want to know, when does f of x equal 21? So f of x, remember, is the same thing as y. And I want to know, when does this function equal 21? So I want to know, when are the y values 21? So notice I didn't give an x value here. So you can't simply do this. You can't take the 21 and replace it. You do not want to do that. So I'm going to try to undo that right now. There we go. Instead, it says f of x is 21. So 21 is going to take the place of the entire f of x. So 21 equals 2x plus 3. And now I have an equation to solve. So you should all know how to solve this equation, so I'm not going to explain what I'm doing here. You should see. I'm just getting x by itself. So I got 9. So let's see, did I answer the question? When does f of x equal 21? In other words, at what x value is the y value 21? Well, how about when x equals 9? And it's the only answer. It's the only answer we got when solving that equation. So when we don't have to just have an equation. We could also be given the table already. So notice here, right up here, that says g of x. So now you can call your equations different things. We don't just have to call them y equals, at the beginning anymore. We can do f of x, we can do g of x, we can do h of x, we can do whatever we want, and they're all different things. So in this table, it says, okay, given some x values, these are the y values, or we'll say the g of x values that go with them. So I could ask you, what is g of 1/2? So if you look at this 1/2, right, look at this, that's in the space of the x. So I'm going to come over to the x column, I'm going to look for 1/2, and notice that the g of x that goes with it is 70. So that says when x is 1/2, g of x is 70. And we can do the opposite direction as well. So I could say solve, oops, I could do solve g of x equals 3. That's the same type of question I asked on the previous slide. I'm asking, what are the g of x values? Okay, I'm sorry, what are the x values when g of x is 3? So I'm going to come back here. Let me get rid of what I was doing here. Notice that g of x is this column, and I see 3 in 2 different places. So when I am asking you to solve this, I'm asking you for the x values that make that true. So when is g of x 3? Well, the first check mark came from -3. So when x was -3, we got 3 for g of x. But the same thing happened with 100. So I'm going to write down 2 answers here. I'm going to say when x is -3 and when x is 100, g of x is 3. So again, we went in both directions there. Okay. The next slide, we have a graph. And this graph has a function name called h of x. So notice I've dealt with 3 different things. They all had different names. So when I see h of x, that means that whenever I see h involved in the question, I should probably be using this graph up here that corresponds to the graph. So h of 5, this is really saying use the graph of h of x, and the x value we're looking at is 5. Okay, so here is the x value of 5. I'm going to go up all the way to the graph, and I see it right up here. What y value is that? It is at 4. Okay, and again, we can go backwards. We can say, oh, here's what h of x is. It's 2. Solve means what x value gives us an h of x value of 2. Or in other words, oh, remember this means a y value. So I'm going to go on the y-axis to 2. There we go. And I'm going to go over this way, and as soon as I find a point, I know that that's one of my solutions. I'm going to just make sure, are there any others over here? Nope, we're good. The only time when the y value is 2 was at this point, which has an x value of 1. Just like that. So function notation is used to talk about functions. So in the next video, I'm also going to show you what a function is. So stay tuned for that.